I'm going to go through this as diligently, but as quickly as we can, given the time. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a note in the comments, or we could discuss at the end. In the footer, my email is also available. If you have any questions at all, at any time, please feel free to email me and I will gladly elaborate, okay? All right, so small digital strategy for small businesses. Okay, so in the beginning, we're talking about digital versus traditional, what I call tangible marketing. So let's define the differences. In the next couple slides, I'm going to give you some definitions here. So we crawl and then we start to walk. Okay, so tangible or traditional marketing really is mailers, dish row, handouts, flyers, brochures. It could be an ad in a penny saver, or it could even be something that's going on radio or possibly even TV. So traditional marketing is you have a limited audience, right? I'm limited to how many people in distribution I have the ability to send out to, right? So there's only X amount of people in a given zone that I'm sending out through direct mail, every door direct or EDDM. Less information. So if I have a 4x6 card, I can only get so much information into that while being coherent and consistent. High price for advertising. So you have to pay for print, you have to pay for a designer, you have to pay for the vehicle to get this stuff executed and sent out. It's non-versatile. So what I mean by that is if you have something that you're sending out, you only have that one platform in which to do so. So I'm only reaching the audience that might listen to AM radio at 2 o'clock in the morning, for example. Delayed communication. So with direct mail, for example, it takes at least a couple weeks to get this stuff printed, designed, printed, and then sent out. And then the scope is, of course, very limited because I can only send out to X amount of heads. With digital marketing, on the other hand, and there's various platforms, I'm going to go over all those platforms in detail, but you have a low cost. My average CPC or cost per click could be rather low in juxtaposition to postage and the mail itself and working with the team to get it executed. You have a wider range of resources and platforms available to you. So I have a lot of different areas and channels I could possibly hit. Again, we're going to go over that in a bit. A higher conversion rate. So a higher amount of people will click on your ad. Measurable online marketing. So the biggest thing here and the biggest takeaway out of all this I want you to understand is that you could measure your results. And if you could measure and quantify and qualify your results, you know what's working and what's not working. This is how we build success. A higher rate of customer engagement. So I could decide through what I call A/B testing who might be engaging with a certain piece or a certain email better than others. And then it's immediate communication. I could blast this stuff as quick as I could create it. There's no lag or delay in print and send out and all that. Okay, so the next set of definitions I want to go over here are the two different types of websites. There are several others, but these are routinely the two that I encounter most with small to medium business. So you have a lead generation site. What I mean by a lead generation site is a site that's collecting form submissions. We're requesting a quote. I need you to contact me, and it provides the opportunity to leave some further information from the consumer for the next step down the funnel in sales opportunity. Clicks and calls. So who's clicking on my phone number in the upper right-hand corner of my website? You want this information to be as digestible and as quick as possible. Again, we're gonna go over that as well. Sessions. So you have quality traffic and how long somebody stays on the website, which is bounce rate. Cost per lead. So the CPC here. How much does it cost when someone clicks on my advertisement? What's my cost per lead to acquire them? And then you have the e-commerce site. So an e-commerce site is pretty straightforward. This is shopping sites. So I have shirts that I want to sell. That would be an e-commerce site. You're worried about things like your conversion rate. How many visitors are converting into customers? Your shopping cart abandonment. People who visit your site, click on a product to buy, but then they jump out of the cart for some reason. Maybe shipping was too high. These are things you quantify and qualify now because we just spoke on different ways of looking at your data that you can't do with tangible marketing. Average order value, your AOV. How much? What's my average order per customer? Your customer lifetime value, or your CLV, which is projected revenue that the average customer would spend on a website in the lifetime of being a customer. Okay, so you have your lead generation site versus your e-commerce website. KPIs, your key performance indicators. These are measurable factors that tie your business goals together. So this is important to know what my KPIs are. For an e-commerce site, for example, it might be how many sales do I get and how many people are clicking on a product or a area within there. How many people are clicking on girls versus boys denim? What is your bounce rate, etc. Versus a lead generation site, which might mean how many people are clicking on my white paper to get the information that I need them to get so I can start emailing them. So these are your key performance indicators for a website. It's important to know these things. Data, as I said, data is king here. Data is the most important thing. Data tells me how much should I spend on a marketing initiative that I'm putting together, right? You might find that the data is telling me email is the biggest bang for my buck right now. And then you know that's the channel to cross. As I said earlier, if I have a tangible mailer that I'm sending out, it's very hard to extrapolate the ROI unless I have a coupon or some kind of code, or I have a phone number that I'm putting together, or I send people to a landing page. But you can't assume that the end user is necessarily going to bring in that coupon, or they're going to remember to click on your landing page. So the data is pretty skewed. Here with digital marketing, you know what the data is. The data it's clean cut. Okay, and with that data, there are various tools online that we could be using. So we use Google Analytics, which is essentially the hub for everything you do within your website. So when you get your website set up, at the end you have a great website that's buzzing and humming. You're going to install and apply Google Analytics. The person or persons or team or yourself that's going to install Google Analytics, they're going to know where to put a click-through, where buttons should occur, and where things should happen. And when those actions happen, there's a secondary tool called Google Tag Manager, which is a little more in depth. But what that provides you is it provides you different tags for different responses on your website. So essentially what this does is it helps you learn a bit more about the user life cycle. So this way you can make discernible decisions about what to do on your website. An example here would be people are seeing my hero, which is the above the fold information on my website, but they're not scrolling down to get any of that information. We could follow the user journey and start to make decisions and observations about that. Let's say the hero image is not correlating to your current promotion that you have in some other executable areas. Let's use an example of direct mail. So my direct mail piece is not showcased on the front end of my website on my hero image when people land on the page. If your promotion and your messaging isn't the same and consistent and cohesive throughout, you might confuse your consumer and they might bounce off the page. So starting to digest and understand this data is important. Okay, so important metrics here when you're looking at your data, when you have Google Analytics installed and you're ready to roll. Sessions per user. So sessions per user is the measurable amount of traffic coming to your site, where they came from and where they're headed. New and returning visitors. These are new visitors, first-time visitors who have never seen your site versus returning visitors, people who've been to your site before and are coming back for more. This might help you in understanding if you're doing a retention campaign, right? I want to retain my consumer for another set of sales, right? Every quarter, I do a consultation email where, hey, remember to get your quarterly taxes done by me. Remember to prep your quarterly taxes. I'll see my returning visitors, and I'll know that's part of the reason why my initiative is working. Bounce rate. So bounce rate is users that visit your website, but they immediately bounce off, right? As I said earlier, maybe your messaging isn't spot on with your entire 360 advertising approach. So these are things you want to keep in mind. Your average page load time. I'm going to get into this a little further in depth down the road here, but how long does it take for my website to load? Now, if you have a website that on mobile takes a while to load, let's say it's an e-commerce site, we know that your end user is a consumer. You're not selling B2B products, you're selling B2C. You're selling, let's say, t-shirts. I'm selling t-shirts. My consumer is visiting it on a mobile device more than likely. I know this from my Google Analytics. It's telling me that 70% of my users visiting my site from a mobile device. However, my website is really slow and it's not optimized for mobile. Now, if your page load time is slow, your consumer has a very short attention span. So they're more than likely going to bounce off of this page. When they bounce off this page, perhaps maybe they didn't find the information they wanted. Maybe it loaded too slow. Maybe there was some cart abandonment. These are things you look at. Organic versus paid sessions. So an organic session is something that I came in through a general search. I'm going to go further in depth in that in a bit. So this is your SEO versus your pay-per-click, your paid advertising. If I'm paying for something, I'm paying for that click. If I'm not paying for it, someone found me and they searched for me organically. I typed Coca-Cola into Google and then I found Coca-Cola. There's a bit more to digest there, but that's essentially what I'm talking about. And then you have your top landing pages or your top pages on your website. The top 5 to 10 pages that your consumer clicks on and gets to. Maybe they came in through the homepage, but they found something interesting in the service page, right? What are those top pages? Those top 10 pages are your low-hanging fruit where you want to put your information. You want to make sure you have a conversion point on your website, somewhere where they could click through on these top 10 pages, right? So I have a form submission on those pages because I know that's where the consumer is generally going. Okay, and what are channels that we started to talk about? Now this is when we're going to start to get into the fun stuff here. So my channels, direct. Users coming in and visiting www.coca-cola.com. This is a direct thing. This is what I call brand marketing. They've already known your brand. They know your website. This isn't something, this could have been from some kind of promotion you put together, but generally you find a lot of times this is repeat traffic, or this is someone coming in direct who's already familiar with your product or services. Organic. This is when I'm searching for soft drinks instead of Coca-Cola. So I searched soft drinks. Coca-Cola came up first in search. That's the one I clicked on, and that's where my conversion factor happened. Paid. This is where you put a paid pay-per-click ad on the internet. So for me, I went in Google Ads. I put up an ad with a $600 per month allocation. Then people clicked on that ad. We'll get more into that as we go here. Social media. So social media is twofold. Social media can be paid advertising. There are paid metrics on there, but it can also be organically. It's just me keeping in touch with my consumer through organic posting. I'll dive further into that shortly. Referral. So referral traffic coming to my site. My site was referred by another site through inbound, outbound links. Emails. So I send out email blasts to lists I've been acquiring over time on my website and to my links with my emails within my CRM. Okay, so there are 4 main steps here, as we say in an active web group, and it's really a rinse and repeat cycle. How do I boil this down to the most important common elements here? Okay, so step 1, you want to assess your goals. You want to know what your goals are, and you want to know where to go to achieve them. If I don't have goals in mind, I can't do anything. So for me, I am let's say I'm a contractor. I just got up a great website. For me, my goal is to acquire 50 leads per month off of my website. That is my goal. For me, I am an e-commerce site. I sell t-shirts and hats. For me, I want to sell $10,000 worth of shirts and hats per month. This is my goal. I want to drive this digitally. Step 2, this is the digital marketing strategy. Now we take a lot of those platforms, which I previously talked about, and we're going to dive further into. I'm going to decide which platforms will work best for me, given my goal, the end result, and given the financial and the time that I have available to me. So I know that email, from a lot of the stuff I was previously looking at, is the biggest bang for my buck. I'm going to start out with email. I'm going to see where this happens. How much am I making back from this email? Now, as I said, you rinse and repeat the cycle. So I find I did this for a quarter, only doing email nurture marketing. I'm collecting leads through my funnel. I'm sending out emails only, nurture emails, and then every 3rd email then becomes a promotional email. So I have 2 newsletter emails. My 3rd one is save 50% on all denim. Through that, I did that for a quarter. I looked at the metrics. For me, I wasn't really making as much as I thought I was going to make. I didn't reach my goal. So then that's when we add something to this strategy. Okay, execution here. So the execution is rather straightforward. This is executing the task. And I have to say, a lot of times what I find with small and medium business here is it's very hard to do everything, right? You are the bookkeeper, you are the salesperson, you're all the employees, you're HR, you're the marketing director, right? You can't be great at everything. So when it comes time to execute, understand that. Understand what you can do. Have an honest conversation with yourself at what you're able to do, what you're able to get done at the end of the day. Am I losing money because I'm the guy that's sending out emails, but I'm not sending out enough emails? Something to think about. Okay. Important here, you have to set benchmarks, right? You have to break up these tasks, as I said. If you can't complete these tasks, it's something you have to look at yourself and think about. That's when we start to hire or we start to find experts who can complete these tasks. And you have to give it time. This is the biggest mistake I see in advertising with small business all the time. As an expert in marketing, nobody gives it enough time to ferment, especially with things like SEO. I use the example for Coca-Cola. I just developed a new local soft drink. I think I could take over the root beer term in search. People are going to search root beer. I'm going to beat Coca-Cola overnight. That never happens. It takes time. It's an investment. Things take time to develop. And the more time you can provide it while nurturing it, the better your end result will be. And step 4 always is analytics. We want to look at data. The greatest thing about digital marketing here is data. And I'm going to keep saying the word data. So you look at your data, you see what the data is telling you, or you work with your experts to look at the data. And then from there, you make decisions. And then you head back to step 1, rinse and repeat, right? Until we perfect and find the perfect steps, the perfect variables, the perfect strategy to entice and gain consumer confidence. Okay, so digital platforms. I've been teasing on this the whole time. There are a lot of digital platforms, a lot of things we could do. As I said, it's more robust than tangible marketing. Tangible marketing, as I said, there's several things I could do here, but 1, it's hard to extrapolate an ROI, or return on investment. And 2, it's overall dicey. So when I think about digital marketing, here are the things that I'm thinking about initially. So you have a full 360 funnel. You want to end up doing a little bit of everything. But what I had when I first talked about this is I said you start out doing, let's say, email, for example. I'm not saying this is what to do, but this is just an example here. I started out adding email to my funnel in Q1. I then said I didn't reach my 10K goal selling shirts and hats. So maybe I need to add a second component here. So then I added my pay-per-click. So I have my email and my pay-per-click firing off to a landing page, right? Then from there, I'm adding a third come Q3. And then I'm saying, all right, this strategy is working. This strategy isn't working. Let me move things around. That's what's great about digital marketing. But everything starts with your brand. Your brand could be several things. It's your messaging. It's your design. It's everything from your packaging to your product, right? Your brand, this is what you're telling your consumer you are in the market space. This tells me why I'm different. This is your mission statement. This is your unique value proposition, why I'm better than my competition. Knowing these things going into this is important. It's important digitally and it's important tangibly. Okay, so once I have this and I know who I am, I know that my color is blue and orange like Active Web Group, I can move forward. So now we have responsive web design. So the hub for everything in digital marketing is a website. I find a lot of guys starting out a business, they either have a lackluster website or they don't have one at all. You're a professional company, you want to have a professional website. And what I mean by a professional website is I mean something clean and concise. The consumer quickly is able to digest and understand who you are as a business, why you're better than your competition, what your mission statement is, and what you can do for me as a consumer, right? And that's done both across platform. So your website looks just as great on a mobile device as it does on a desktop. Okay, email marketing. We talked a little bit about email marketing. So email marketing is several things. Email marketing to me is nurture-based marketing. What I mean by nurture-based marketing is I am sending messaging to my consumer on a specific timeline. So every 2 weeks, my consumer is getting an email from me. That email does not always need to be sale, 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 sale. That email should be consistently nurture content. For me, that's a newsletter. That's just a here's what's happening. at my business right now. Some important information for the consumer to understand. Perhaps I have a newsletter. That newsletter clicks through to my great responsive website on my blog. My blog is optimized for SEO. We'll get into that in a second. And then that has a CTA at the end of the website with a subscribe or put your information in to get a free consultation or get this. So the end result always is some kind of touch point in terms of a goal completion for you, whether it be a sale, I'm selling my pants and hats, or it's the contractor looking to refurbish a homeowner's home. However, the entry point in that funnel, that conversion funnel, does not need to be a direct response item. So as I said, nurture marketing happens at top funnel and it goes all the way down to the bottom funnel till you get a conversion point. Okay, so SEO. SEO, one of my favorite things here as a digital marketer. SEO is what I call essentially free marketing. Of course, you're paying for the time and sweat equity that you're putting into it. However, long term, you're not paying for your acquisition. So pay-per-click is something I'm always paying a cost per lead. SEO, once you're at the top of the search, you're dominating your competition in search. I'm now dominating Coca-Cola for the term root beer, right? I'm ahead of them. I'm #1 in search. Your consumer is typically going to go in search, Google, MSN, Bing are the top 3. They're typically going to go and they're going to click the first page, the top 3 results, right? You could cheat that by having an ad up. I'm going to get into that in a second. But organically, without putting a spend allocation behind it, you could dominate that search. You do that through blogs, link building. You have a keyword strategy in place. I know what keywords my competition has. I know what I want to rank for. I then put a strategy together for that with great content writing. I'm looking at my website. I'm optimizing it. I'm looking at the front and back end. I'm simplifying a lot of this because there's a lot of technical stuff that happens here. But essentially, you want to do a couple things. You want to look at your key terms. You want to look at your competitor key terms. Then you want to come up with a strategy to write this content. From there, you're going to continually update content on your site for 2 reasons. One, Google loves a site that's constantly updated. Secondly, when I have a website that I'm continually updating, the consumer likes that as well. It gives me a reason for sending out an email every other week, right? Because I'm constantly having information for the consumer to come back on. These things are important for SEO. And then you have your pay-per-click. Pay-per-click, as I said, it's a cost allocation here. You have a way to cheat the search right now by doing this through paid ad. Now, when I said time is a factor, time isn't a factor with something like SEO. So I can't go in this selling pants and hats and then think I am going to outrank organically Walmart tomorrow. Not happening. One, they've been a website for a while. That's what you call your domain authority. That in tandem with a couple other points. But they have a better domain authority. They have more pages and links that have been assessed over the years. So it's an upward hill battle to beat someone like that, you know. However, over time, it's something you could start to climb up the search if you're continually attacking it, right? And then you don't have to pay cost acquisition, pay per lead. So while you're doing that, you work on something like pay-per-click, where you have your ad that shows up for a specific set audience or set group of people. I only want to reach contractors in the tri-state area because I'm looking to sell them my drill bits. I only want to reach homeowners in, let's say, locally, you know, in the Suffolk County area. You assess who you want to reach, who your target market is. Through there, you try to put together what makes sense. You have key terms that you thought about from your SEO strategy. Those are some of the key terms you want to put in place and put a bid acquisition in. Certain key terms cost more than others. So I have my ad terms, let's say denim. Denim is probably a term that costs a lot more than something like cotton twill pants, you know. It's just keep that in mind that your cost per click varies. And your cost per click goes down over time as you're working on your SEO as well. So you want to make sure you're continually optimizing and updating your website while you're doing a strategy like a pay-per-click strategy. Okay, social media. Everyone's always talking about social media, how social media is great. I know a lot of my other fellow business owners, they obtain a lot of consumers through social media. Yes and no. It depends on a lot of factors. I'm going to get into the B2B versus B2C in a second, but you have to know who your audience is as a business. If I'm selling shirts and pants, putting organic lifestyle content with great imagery, I'm putting my brand forward while it's not constantly sale, sale, sale. That's vital. Every couple posts or so, I'm linking back to my website through my blog that I've optimized through SEO. These things work well. Consistency is key here. You have to be consistent. For me, it's do one thing 110%. Don't do 5 things 4%. Okay. A lot of times I find people do social media. They don't do social media 100%, and it shows. And it's detrimental to other efforts such as email marketing or content writing. So you want to make sure if you're going to go about social media organically, you're going to have great branded content that's not sloppy, and you're going to go out at 100%, and your message is going to be consistent and solid. Now, without talking about platforms in general, ad spend is available for social media. You can put an ad spend here. You could do shopping on Instagram. You could put a bid strategy in place for LinkedIn to quickly get to a decision maker should you be more of a B2B, business to business type of organization. You want to reach the decision maker. You want to reach HR. So knowing what you're trying to do is important here, who you're trying to reach, because different platforms are available for different reasons and have different audiences and subscribers and users. But the paid channel on social media is a very strong one. It works in tandem. I always say this, it should work in tandem with everything else you're doing from your website onwards. I want to get people off of social media. I don't want to keep the end user on my page, my social media page. I want to get them on my website, digesting my content, looking at my blogs, going to my website, filling out my forms, ringing my phone. So the end result is always to get them to go to your website or to your landing page outside of social media. Okay, issues. There's always issues, right? What are the issues along the digital frontier? Now, technology is always evolving. This isn't the presentation I have here today. Tomorrow, there might be 5 factors that are more important and more pressing here. That's the fun part about digital marketing. That's why we love doing what we do here at Active Web Group. However, I want to give you the couple things that you should be looking at in your side view mirrors here to make sure that everything you put forward is going to be successful. Okay, so the first thing is site speed. So site speed, of course, as I said, it affects several factors. SEO, the faster your site, Google loves it. Google has what they call a ranking algorithm for your mobile devices. This is their mobile first index. So a site that works fast on a mobile device, thumbs up Google. It's gonna be an easier path for you to start ranking in Google, right? Whereas if you don't have a great optimized site for speed, this will impact your SEO, which in turn will affect traffic. It also, of course, causes users to bounce off the site. So if it takes 10 seconds for this page to load, I've already moved on with my life. I'm Xing out. I'm going to go click on the next thing in search, which is probably your competitor. Okay, so responsive versus adaptive websites. When we're talking about site speed and we're talking about websites, responsive websites are websites that essentially stack elements in a certain way automatically. So good example here to the left is I have my hero image, which is on the top. I got my logo in orange. Below that, I have my 3 different key elements, which is all above the fold. Keep that in mind. Anything that's on the screen below before I scroll is what we call above the fold. So all my most important elements right now are above the fold. On a mobile device, if you look over here to the way the mobile is, I've lost a couple elements. So they have gotten stacked below the fold. So it's important to keep that in mind with a responsive website. Now, a responsive website, a good web designer will automatically create a responsive website for you. So it will automatically be responsive. You don't really have to worry about much. An adaptive website, however, is typically custom. This creates a custom user journey for every single device. This might be important for somebody who, let's say, is B2B. So for me, I have a few key pieces of information that I want to get across directly on my desktop. I know my end user, because it's B2B, they're more inclined to use Microsoft products. So I want to speak to that when they're using their desktop at work, right? The HR person's looking at this. I want to make sure that's the audience I'm speaking to, and she gets the most coherent information served to her first. Now, when she's on her Microsoft Surface, that information that she's getting, I want to serve it to her a little differently. I want to get my key points across, but I don't want my responsive web design to dictate that for me. This is something that I want a custom journey for. So again, it's important to know who your audience is and what you're trying to accomplish here. Okay, AMP. AMP is what I was trying to say earlier with Google. So Google has this, this mobile first index. Google also has AMP technology. So the most fastest websites are using AMP. What AMP does is it strips all the unimportant jargon out of your website. So essentially your website becomes a Word document, so to speak, with a few great images and captions. Strips all the things that might take a long time to load. Let's say you have some hovering actions and elements that happen. On activewebgroup.com, our website, we have a whole bunch of icons that move and do all these cool animatics, right? Without slowing speed down. We strip some of these elements down when you go to look at them on an AMP website. We have an AMP version of our website. So this explains to you how a website looks on AMP. Again, a lot of times it strips a lot of that information out, but this is the fastest website you could possibly have when thinking about SEO. Okay, so as I said, the best approach is always to ask questions. Ask yourself who I am as a company and who I'm trying to reach. B2B, I've been saying this a lot, so B2B is a business to business. I am a tax consulting company that only works with other businesses. So I do taxes for various organizations that make $500,000 a year plus, right? That is my business strategy. That's who I'm looking for as a consumer. Now, all the things I said there, I've given you little bits and pieces to attack what you want to do as that type of business who is looking to obtain that kind of business. So keeping things in mind like what you're doing in social media. So I'm thinking about LinkedIn and maybe Twitter first before I think about something like an Instagram. Now B2C is business to consumer. I was talking about I'm a soft drink manufacturer, I'm making a new root beer, or I'm selling shirts and hats to the consumer. That's that kind of website. So with those kind of websites in mind, there's a lot of questions to ask. How my website looks like on a mobile device, what are the different ways I could obtain the end user. With B2B, getting an email list, maybe I already have a pre-baked email list that works out rather well for me. So that's low-hanging fruit for me to start my digital marketing journey. Whereas if I'm business to consumer, I don't have consumer email addresses, and buying lists is a little suspect. Definitely a different a different presentation altogether. But so for me, maybe putting advertisements on LinkedIn and Facebook, going that route is my best approach. But when I think about my website in terms of both site speed and how it looks on desktop versus mobile, these two questions are very important to ask yourself. Okay, so Google algorithm updates. As I said, SEO. One of my babies here. When I think about SEO and content writing and content marketing, the biggest hurdle that happens is an algorithm update from Google. So Google is constantly changing their technology. They're constantly updating things, they say, for the better, but that's not always the case. So I might be ranking #1 for root beer right now, but my content strategy now has to change because I dropped in rankings significantly. These are the different types of algorithms that recently have been updated. They give them fun names, but they all do different things. Some of them update for things like privacy information. Other times you get updates for medic. There was a medic update. So if I'm a vitamin, I'm selling vitamins, right? And I have a lot of information that maybe is valuable and it's correct, but it's not backed by the FDA. Google's going to say, and then my rankings are going to go down. So I have to change my vocabulary and all the content on my 1,000 pages that I've already put on the website to meet the demand, so I spike back up in rankings. This is a good example of an algorithm hit that happened a little bit over a year ago to a client. So they were trending up as of 5/26/19. Then all of a sudden we had an algorithm update, and then the traffic dipped in half. This could be disastrous to a digital marketing strategy. But knowing that there's been an algorithm update, knowing what the algorithm update is, Google doesn't release what the algorithm update is. A lot of that becomes expert guesswork. As digital marketing SEO experts, we have a pulse to that, so we know what's going on. And getting out of that. How do I get out of that? What do I have to do? Do I have to redevelop all my content because I'm a vitamin manufacturer? Is it as simple as there's a couple pages I can omit? What can I do to change this and quickly bounce back? So that's something to think about when doing your SEO strategy. It's important to constantly look at your metrics and your rankings to make sure it's an uphill battle, an uphill climb. ADA. So this is a big buzzword that's happening now for websites. A lot of people are going around and getting sued now for ADA focused websites. ADA is visual and hearing impaired. So there's different levels of compliance here, depending on your business model, how many users you get to a site, who those users are the different levels in which you have to comply to the guidelines. For a lot of people, it's just making sure that the readers, there are readers that they'll phonetically read the website. You have to make sure all your copy is readable, right? That the readers can read this. It's not something that's embedded in an image. So I made a designer create a JPEG for my hero image. That hero image has the vocabulary, the copy that's built into that image. The reader won't be able to read that. So I have to make sure that all my vocabulary on the site is readable. My colors aren't jarring. If you were to go and make my website black and white, get more into a visual thing here, but making sure that the things stand out in proper place. And then the size of the text. These are all different things you have to keep in mind. You have to know what level of compliance you have to abide by. The California website privacy law. So there's a lot of new restrictions going on with data. A lot of them relate to various things. So for me, for us, it's e-commerce site, for example. Do I do over $50,000 a year in business on my website in the state of California? Or do I have X amount of users who visit my site? So there are different laws and guidelines that you have to abide by to restrict the data and supply back the data. And there's different pieces of vocabulary, and I think you guys are probably seeing it more and more when you go and visit websites. Just keep these things in mind, because again, this is another thing people are going around and just suing people for. Okay, and finally, emerging technology. For me, a good example here is in search, right? So if I'm thinking about SEO, we have what we call, there's three things with SEO without getting too deep water. You have your short tail search, which are your short key terms. For me, root beer is a short term. And then you have your long tail. Long tail for me, for SEO in general, long tail is something that can be searched for. So I'm speaking to, I don't want to say her name, but the Amazon, all my things are going to go off here on my house. But if I'm speaking directly to my search device, my speaking search device, if I'm speaking to that, I'm going to speak phonetically, right? I'm not going to just robotically say root beer. I'm going to say great soft drinks, etc. So the way you phonetically say something, long and the short, is part of search technology. That is an SEO component. That key term is something I want to bake into my SEO strategy as things progress with search technology. And these things, there's a lot of exit points here. This is just an example of them. As I said, digital technology is always advancing and evolving. Okay, well, thank you guys. I'm going to open up to questions, I suppose. I'm Frank Correo, the digital marketing manager here at Active Web Group, and Scott Ford is our president, who is also on this call. Again, my email was in my footer, but it's also over here. If you have any questions outside this, I know there's a lot of people participating in this meeting. But if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You know, I'm always available 24 hours a day, really, to answer any questions on digital marketing you guys might have and help you go forward. I know this stuff isn't digestible, a lot of it. Some people, it might seem very baseline. Some people, it might be very complicated. So just keep that in mind. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay. There's one question, Frank, if you have time to answer it.
Absolutely.
I'm curious your thoughts on the effectiveness of Pinterest.
Pinterest. Okay. Yeah. So absolutely. Pinterest is more content marketing. So it can be effective. It's a search engine, like anything is a search engine. People think of YouTube. YouTube is one of the top search engines, right? And you could optimize your video content for that. You could also, of course, apply an ad spend. I'm sure you guys see ads on YouTube. But Pinterest is definitely something you could apply both an ad spend or just put together in your organic marketing efforts. Just as I said, don't do all 10 platforms or 50 platforms in social. 5%. If you're going to go and attack Pinterest, make sure you're doing it 100%. Did that answer your question? I don't know who asked that question.
Does the program give support by looking at websites and making suggestions is another question.
Does the program?
Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to need you to elaborate. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you can hear me. My name is Letitia. Yeah, okay. So what I'm asking is that if I have a website, do you or does the small business program look at people's websites and see what suggestions and make suggestions on what should be changed?
Sure. So with us at Active Web Group, it's something we do. So when I look at a website, I'm doing a couple things. One, I'm looking at the back end. I'm looking for SEO, making sure you have all your exit points and you're ready to roll in terms of organic search. But we also do what we call CRO, which for us, it's looking at the conversion rate optimization opportunities. So for us, that might be, do you have a goal completion that's above the fold? When I say goal completion, as I said in my presentation here, is my phone number coherent and clickable on a mobile device above the fold? Do I have a click through that's in my navigation for quick contact? And is my top key, most important message above the fold? These are things we look at. And then we look at your top couple pages and we see what needs to happen there, as I said in the presentation.
Okay. So we could just email you for that?
Yes, and I'm going to even put in this chat so everyone has it.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so there's a couple other questions here. How do you feel about a free Google web page? I'm a new business owner. Okay, so there's a lot of both CMSs and these free site builders. GoDaddy has one, Wix, of course, Squarespace. We encounter them all. And then you have more of your premium, more robust platforms like WordPress. We build sites on WordPress. Then you have everything from a custom program Magento shopping site, and et cetera. So any site really to get started is definitely viable. You just have to know, there's a lot of things to know when building a website, as I said. Knowing your target audience. Am I trying to reach B2B versus B2C? Knowing what my messaging is important. Having an honest conversation with yourself about what you can and can't accomplish. Again, don't accomplish anything 5%. That's not, it's just gonna be a bit of a failure. So knowing what my messaging is, knowing who my audience is, knowing what makes a great website. You can't expect to build a website with minimal experience and then have it start to rank and dominate, a lot of these bigger brands. There's a lot of work that has to be done on that end. But to answer the question, getting started with a website is important. So if you have nothing right now, getting a landing page up should be task number one. From there, you could expand and grow on your website platform. And you can grow your site over time. Just know what you're trying to accomplish. So Shopify is a great tool for some people who are just starting out with a shopping website. There are a lot of hurdles and variables from a digital marketing standpoint, but getting started there and having a website is better than having none. Okay, let me see what we got here. If you are a B2C and pivoting to include B2B, can I add a page to existing website for B2B instead of building a whole new website? It depends. Your messaging, your market might be different completely. Your vocabulary might be different, which might in tune warrant another website. Let's say I'm a construction company, but now I'm getting into real estate property. Those are two separate different things. They're two separate audiences. I don't want to confuse my current audience by introducing a completely left field service and then marketing it. You know, your bounce rate is going to be higher. Your messaging is going to be mixed. My advice there, depending on the scope, would be to start creating a whole nother funnel and a whole nother platform. I believe that's best, but it does vary person to person. If it makes sense that I'm a hair salon and I used to cut, I only did female hair. Now I do men's hair. There, it might make sense to add that service to my website because it's still within the scope of what I do. But if you have two completely separate things, apples and oranges, it makes sense to split up the services and by different brands. Does that answer that question?
It does. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Wix, Weebly, and Squarespace. Yeah, so I mean, I touch base on those a little bit. Those freemium, as we call them, good and bad. It limits you a little bit in what you could do in terms of digital marketing. Some of this stuff doesn't really apply. I think your SEO is a little limited in what you could do. There's a lot of technical back-end stuff that happens outside of just writing content and guesstimating on key terms. We don't guesstimate, but if you were to go about it yourself, keep that in mind. And then knowing what you want to do from a marketing platform perspective. Some of these tools do have some really, as I call them, cute marketing services embedded in them. Just know what the boundaries of those things are. If you're only looking for a 3-page website, and you only have X amount of terms to rank for, you know, getting started there, as I said, is a good place, rather than not having anything. I'd rather have a Wix site than have nothing at all. Let me just say that. But if I had the opportunity and the chance to build a more professional, custom solution website, I would probably go that route. What's the best documentation guides for privacy laws? Okay, so you could, that gets a little more in depth about the privacy laws, and international is a little bit different. If you're talking about international services, then your scope is a little bit, to me, outside of just being a small business with small solutions. I would say for that, there are various tools that you could use. If you email privately, I'll let you know some of those great tools that you can use. Some of them do have a monthly spend allotment, but they do great things that you don't have to really worry about putting content on your website and then it not meeting certain compliances or guidelines. So shoot me a private message and we could dive further into that one. Because the international versus state laws do vary. Can you comment on using Instagram for promoting services for B2B? I can. I do have clients that are B2B and they do have Instagram in their platform. Obviously, since we're a digital marketing firm, I have a full team of people that could account for the full scope of every single platform that's ever existed. But when you're just a B2B starting out and you're one or a couple people, again, being honest with yourself is very important. I don't think that Instagram is the top low-hanging fruit for you. You know, if you're a tax consultant only trying to reach the decision maker, which may be HR in this case, you know, you'll find the HR people in LinkedIn. So your networking strategy and your digital marketing component in LinkedIn has to be that much more robust than Instagram. So if you're gonna get crazy with an Instagram page, just make sure you're doing it properly and it's meeting the guidelines for all the other channels you have. There are some cool automation tools out there. You know, you can just email Google social media automation. Most of them are paid. There's a couple not so great free ones that if I'm posting on Instagram, it will post across channel on all platforms. Things I don't like as a B2B with LinkedIn, Instagram is you can't post links on the post itself. I can post it in my bio, so you'll see a lot link in bio. So if I'm putting out that nurture content I talked about for email marketing, my SEO, etc. When I post that blog content, I have to put that on my bio every time. That creates another thing to do, another step. I'm trying to give a small business a paint by numbers solution here. So I don't think it's low hanging fruit. long story short for Instagram, I would think about LinkedIn. Is there software that allows you to calculate bounce rate by percentage? Yes. For instance, you can input a value like 60 seconds, which represents how long the user is staying on your webpage. Give me a sec, guys, forgive me. And if they stay for a period, that's the value add to your bounce rate percentage on your website. This person Antonio, are you an accountant? Directly to see what percentage of users leave and stay. Okay, so yes, Google Analytics. If you don't have Google Analytics installed on your website, Antonio, you need to get that installed right away. It's definitely something, email me, it's something I can help you out with. That will help you determine a lot of these factors that you're thinking of that you don't have to become a mathematician with an abacus for. It's going to let you know what pages you're getting the bounce rate on, where the bounce rate is coming from, what marketing channels. You could even dive it down to what marketing channels are providing you X bounce rate versus what other ones are providing you this said bounce rate. A lot of factors. I think Google Analytics is something you're going to love. And then they have now G4, which is a more concise version of Google Analytics. And then you have Tag Manager, which creates robust elements for tagging that you could really understand the user's journey. There's other things like heat mapping that you're going to place on your site. So you'll see that it's real hot and red over by the hero image on my website, but as it goes down, it starts to get cooler. Then I could tell by button and by different verbiage and vocabulary, people are kind of falling off on the site. A lot of great tools like that. If anyone has any questions on those tools, please email me. I know we're trying to be brief here. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? I think you could raise your hand over here if you do.
Okay. Well, I guess no one has any more questions. If anyone does have questions that they can think about later, Frank did give you his email address. He wrote it in the chat box, so you feel free to please email him. I just want to thank you very much, Frank and Scott, for presenting this workshop. Appreciate it, and I think everyone really enjoyed it. There's lots of information.
I know there's a lot of vocabulary, a lot of words. Yeah. Covered a lot, probably a lot of head spinning. So please, if you have any questions at all, I'm always available.
Excellent program. Thank you, Frank.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.